So this is the lesson for 8-3, day 2, and we are talking about hemispheres today. What a hemisphere is half of a sphere. If you think about the planet Earth, all right, the planet Earth is divided into different hemispheres. The equator separates the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. The prime meridian separates the western hemisphere and the eastern hemisphere. So basically, we're taking a ball and slicing it in half, right? And that's what a hemisphere is. So the formula for a hemisphere is very similar to yesterday's formula of a sphere. It's the same exact formula. Here you have the formula for volume of a sphere, and all we're doing is taking half of it. So in our formula, we're just going to stick a 1/2 at the beginning of the formula. Now, for 1/2, you can either do 1 divided by 2, or most people just like to type in 0.5 for 1/2. 4/3 is the same as yesterday. I think the easiest way to type in 4/3 is just 4 divided by 3. Although you could use the decimal equivalent and do 1.3333333 and fill up your whole screen with threes. Again, for 1/2, you could do 1 divided by 2 as well. Pi still stays pi, just like before. You could either use the pi button on your calculator or 3.1416. And then just like for spheres, this is your radius cubed. So you're going to do radius, whatever your radius is, caret button, and then 3. Remember, if you don't have a caret button on your calculator, it might show up as y to the x or x to the y. Remember, that's the same thing as the caret button. Or if you had a radius of 4, for example, you might just do 4 times 4 times 4. When you cube a number or to the third power, it's just that number multiplied out 3 times. So really the only difference between yesterday and today is putting this 1/2 at the beginning of the formula. So our formula is 1/2 times 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed, or the radius to the third power. So if we take a look at this first example, all right, you see the hemisphere, you see that that sphere was cut in half. We're still looking for the radius. The radius goes from the center of the hemisphere out towards one of the edges. So this 5 is our hemisphere. This 5 is our radius. So when we go to plug it into the formula, you're going to have 1/2, or 0.5, times 4/3 times pi times 5 to the third power. Just like the previous days, half of your questions you're going to round to the nearest tenth. The other half you're going to leave in terms of pi. So if we were doing one of the rounding to the nearest tenths problems, you're going to type this whole thing right directly into the calculator. So you would type in 0.5 times 4 divided by 3. You don't need any parentheses or anything like that. Times your pi button, or 3.1416, times 5 caret button 3. Again, if you don't have a caret button, you might have y to the x or x to the y, or just do 5 times 5 times 5. So you're going to type that whole thing into the calculator. Again, because we are using pi, you are going to get big, long decimal answers. So when you type this into the calculator, you get 261.7993878, blah, blah, blah. It keeps on going at the end. If we were to round to the nearest tenth, the 7 is in the tenths place. You have to look at the number after it. That number after it is 5 or higher. So you are going to round up to be 261.8. If we were leaving this one in terms of pi, just like the previous days, you're going to type in everything except for the pi symbol. So you're going to type in 0.5, or 1/2, times 4/3 times 5 to the third power. Again, just like previous days, all that we're going to do with that pi symbol is stick it at the end of our answer. So what you're typing into the calculator are just these three terms. 0.5 times 4/3 times 5 to the third power. You get 83.3 repeating, or 83.33333333333. In class kick, just like you have on previous days, for this type of answer, you do not round, all right? You do not round the answers that are in terms of pi, but you do need to stick the word pi at the end. Remember, no space in between the 3 and the p. So this is what you're doing today. It looks exactly the same as yesterday, except that you have 0.5s at the beginning of your formula. Sometimes they are going to try and trick you by giving you the diameter. Notice that this 24 goes all the way across the sphere. Since it goes all the way across the sphere, that 24 is your diameter. Well, again, in our formula, we never have the diameter, we have the radius. So anytime that you're given the diameter, you want to divide it by 2 to find your radius. 24 divided by 2 gives you 12. 12 is our radius. So that's the number that you're subbing into the formula. So we have 1/2, or 0.5, times 4/3 times pi times our radius is 12. So 12 to the third power. If we were rounding to the nearest tenth, we're going to type in all 4 of those things into the calculator all at once, multiplying them together, and you get 3,619.114737, blah, blah, blah at the end. We're going to round to the nearest tenth. The 1 is in the tenths place. We have to look at the number after it. That is 4 or lower. So that means that this 1 stays the same. So we get 3,619.1. If we were doing a question where we're leaving it in terms of pi, you're going to take and multiply everything except for the pi symbol. So 0.5 times 4/3 times 12 to the third power. Again, all that we're going to do with the pi symbol is just take it and stick it at the end. So when we go to do that and type in these 3 terms, 0.5 times 4/3 times 12 to the third power, we're going to get 1,152. And again, all that we do with that pi symbol is just stick it at the end. We don't include it in our calculation. This is not a rounded answer. This is what you actually get when you type it in. Remember, if it's a big long decimal, you have to write the big long decimal. So I'd like you to try one on your own, please. All right, try this one on your own. Find your answer both ways, please. Give me about 20 more seconds or so. So this 3 goes halfway across our sphere. That means that this 3 is our radius. So that's what we want to plug into the formula. 1/2 is just 0.5 times 4/3. Remember, you could use 4 divided by 3 or 1.3333 times pi, or times 3.1416, times your radius to the third power. When you're rounding to the nearest tenth, you're going to type in all 4 of those right into the calculator. When you do that, you get a big long decimal answer, 56.54866,776. You're going to round it to the nearest tenth. The 5 is in the tens place. You want to look at the number after it. That is 4 or lower. So that means this 5 stays the same. So you get 56.5. When you go to do an answer that is leaving it in terms of pi, you're going to type in everything except for the pi symbol. So leaving it in terms of pi, you're going to have 0.5 times 4/3 times 3 to the third power. All that you're going to do with your pi symbol is just stick it at the end of our answer. So you're only typing these 3 things into the calculator, 0.5 times 4/3 times 3 to the third, and you get 18. So this answer is 18 pi when you leave your answer in terms of pi. I'd like you to try one more. Notice that this time this 12 goes all the way across the hemisphere. So this 12 is really the diameter. So the first thing that you need to do is find the radius. Go ahead and try this one, please. I'll give you about another 20 seconds or so. So you are given the diameter. Notice that it goes all the way across the hemisphere. So the first thing that you want to do is divide by 2, and that gives us 6. 6 is our radius. So that's the number that we're subbing into the formula, 0.5 times 4/3 times pi times 6 to the third power. When we're rounding to the nearest tenth, you type in all 4 things into the calculator all at once. You get a big long decimal answer, 452.3893421, blah, blah, blah. Rounding to the nearest tenth, the 3 is in the tenth spot. You have to look at the number after it. That is 4, 5, or higher. So this is going to round up to be 452.4. When we go to leave our answer in terms of pi, you have to type in everything except for the pi symbol. So 0.5 times 4/3 times 6 to the third power. All that we're going to do with our pi symbol is just stick it in at the end of our answer. So we're multiplying just these 3 things together, 0.5 times 4/3 times 6, and you should have gotten an answer of 144 pi. So again, the only difference between yesterday and today, you have half of a sphere. So you need that 0.5 at the beginning of our formula. Also, make sure that you pay attention whether you're given the radius or given the diameter.